Regeneration also done, no?
Yeah, we completed.
So formation is also done. So we are going to start with what? Did you go through this part of the chapter? Any doubts? Anything to clarify? Any doubts? Now today we are going to start with vegetative propagation. The concept of sexual reproduction. Vegetative propagation is a method of. Okay, now if you see that concept on regeneration, sit properly there, the last girl, sit properly. Now, when we talk about the concept of regeneration, you may get questions like this, that whether regeneration is a, remember, whether regeneration is a primary method of reproduction for any organism. What did I explain you the other day? Regeneration is not a primary method. Try recollecting what did we come across the previous day. We have learned some methods of asexual reproduction. Now, talking about the methods of asexual reproduction, we have come across budding, fragmentation, fission, and spore formation. So these were the four main methods. Then regeneration was one method that we studied, where you have to remember regeneration is only a method which can give rise to new organisms provided any organism is accidentally dividing the body into certain parts. Maybe a part of the body been eaten away by certain other organisms, predation. Then whatever part of the body is left, that can give rise to a complete, that can complete the body. Talk about the planaria. Did you all complete the diagrams?
Yes.
Did you all complete the diagram? Show me your notebook. I have asked you to complete all the diagrams. No, we have drawn all these diagrams in the class the other day. All these diagrams are important. You are asked to draw them as it is for 2 marks or along with questions. Which diagrams you were sitting in the first bench no, that day? You were absent that day? The previous day you were absent?
Yes.
You'll have to ask your friends which are the topics covered up. Those of you who are present, boys, show me your notebooks. Show me your notebooks from there. Diagrams of asexual methods of reproduction. Pen. क्यों? Class में ही तो करना है, but pencil. How can the girls do with pencil? Pencil से करना है ना diagrams. Practice all these diagrams. Next. Last day absent. You were there? You were there. You were very much there because you were snoring here and I told you get up.
Acha, about the diagrams.
So you're not even aware what is happening in the class. टॉपिक पता है क्या पढ़ा रही थी मैं पिछले दिन क्या पढ़ाया मार्क्स भी तेरे ऐसे होने वाले हैं अच्छे तो स्कूल में है Now, be serious, children. 10th standard students, unless and until you are serious, it's difficult to get good marks in the boards. Now, when we are talking about now these diagrams, all of you please complete all these diagrams. Take a note. Where's your notebook? Did you draw these diagrams? So take a note. Write in your notebook to complete all the 5 methods of asexual reproduction, the diagrams for all the 5 methods. All of you, next class will show me these diagrams. Which are the diagrams you are supposed to draw? You are supposed to draw the diagrams of fission, fragmentation. Next is what? Fission, fragmentation, budding. Then spore formation and regeneration. Spore formation and regeneration. So these processes and their diagrams, very labeled neat diagrams to be completed. And next time, next class, please remember to complete and bring. I will check your notebooks. All of you should draw these diagrams complete. Now, after this, we start discussing about the concept of vegetative propagation. What is vegetative propagation? Vegetative propagation, quite similar like the concept of asexual reproduction. When I talk about vegetative propagation, quite similar like asexual reproduction. This is in plants. So we are talking about vegetative propagation where what is the meaning of propagation? Propagation means multiplication, increasing in number. What is the meaning of vegetative? Vegetative means parts of the plant which are not the reproductive parts. So what is the meaning of vegetative? And if I ask you then which are the reproductive parts and not the reproductive parts of a plant? The root and the stem, the leaves, the bud, these are not the reproductive parts of a plant. Then which is the reproductive part of a plant? The flower. Only the flower is the reproductive part of a plant. So now when we are talking about the concept of vegetative reproduction, vegetative propagation, remember we understand propagation by the stem, we understand propagation by the root, we understand propagation by the leaf. Again I repeat, what is the meaning of propagation? Formation of a new plant from these vegetative parts, from these non-reproductive parts. Now, if I talk about stem, how is it possible that from a stem a new plant would develop? We talk about that from any particular stem, cut out a small portion of the stem, cut out a small portion of the stem, and this portion of the stem, if we now try to put here, keep in the soil under all normal conditions of the soil should have adequate amount of nutrients, should be moist. So this particular process where we are talking about that the stem cuttings of any particular plant, and put in the soil, but take a note that the stem cutting has to be something like this, oblique. Stem cutting is generally not straight. It is not generally straight. But why oblique? So that there is a large surface area. And the large surface area meaning so many cells of this cut out portion of the stem exposed to the soil water, and they are absorbing the nutrients and the water. The process of formation of the roots become much faster by this method. In comparison, if I talk about another stem cutting, maybe now the stem has been cut this way. So which particular stem, A or B, will establish faster in the soil? A will always establish faster in the soil. Reason what to write? Why A will establish faster in the soil? Because A has a larger surface area, and the number of cells are more exposed to absorb the water, and the development of the roots become much faster. So more and more large number of roots develop, and when the roots are developing, the plant establishes. What is this method known as? This method is known as cutting. Cutting is a particular method, very simpler method. From the stem cuttings, variety of different type of plants can be grown. Sugarcane, we talk about the rose, we talk about the hibiscus, many different type of plants with formed stem can be grown by this method. Next is we talk about the root. Can the root be used to grow new plants? Yes, roots of many different type of plants can be used to grow new plants. Now, which are those methods and how would that happen? So when we are talking about certain plants again, we talk about certain plants again, the plants have got certain roots like this. Now the roots of certain plants which are very close to the soil, now these roots start developing and growing above the soil. These roots which are now spreading and growing above the soil, they start growing above the soil. What are these type of roots known as? This is known as the adventitious roots. These are secondary roots actually, and these are known as adventitious roots. Then what would happen? These adventitious roots now they start spreading up over the soil, and from certain different growing regions, I may say the root would have certain nodes. The roots would have certain nodes. What are nodes? A region of the stem where a large number of fast dividing cells are present. Do you remember the concept of apical meristems and lateral meristems, those concepts? What is the meaning of meristems when I say meristematic tissue? When I say a group of cells which are fast dividing. So that's what I'm talking about now. That how would these roots give rise to a new plant? Because these roots, a number of times, they start moving upwards and spread over the soil in all directions. They spread over the soil in all directions. And now from these nodes, what would happen? A large number of secondary roots develop. And again, after a particular period of time, again, another plant starts developing and another plant will start developing this way. So now when we are talking about growth of plants in this particular manner, so now we come across after some particular period of time, another plant has started growing. So this is the next generation plant. So all over the soil, this type of plants can grow in large numbers. But remember, this type of plants that we are talking about is majorly for plants with narrow, feeble, weak stem. Not very hard bark or trunk type of example we are talking about. So for grapes and for strawberries and for these type of plants like the small herbs and the shrubs and the grasses, they generally grow by this method. A large number of aquatic plants also they show this method. Now this particular method is known as layering. What is this particular method known as? This is known as layering. What was the first method we came across? That was cutting. Which part of the plant is used? The stem. For cutting, majorly we are talking about tall trees, big trees, or shrubs, not generally herbs. Cutting is not majorly for herbs at all. Layering is for herbs. And layering can be applicable for terrestrial plants and aquatic plants also, semi-aquatic plants also. If I talk about the mangroves and all by this particular method, the layering. One special feature of layering is whenever you try uprooting one plant, say suppose I talk about uprooting one grass plant in the lawn or in the roadside. So in the roadside I want to uproot one grass plant. Is it so easy to uproot one grass plant though the plants look so small? What is the problem? We get to see that in the vicinity so many other plants are getting pulled. And when you actually pull one, another 4 plants are actually getting pulled. Why? Because they are all connected like this. They are all connected like this. And that's a natural method. That's a natural process. So I would say layering can be of 2 types. What is one type of layering? This is a natural process of layering. This is the natural method that we are talking about. The natural process of layering. But there is another artificial method of layering also. There is another artificial method of layering also, which is manually done for a variety of plants, crops. So which is the artificial method when we are talking about the manual process of layering? The artificial process of layering. So now, talking about the artificial process of layering. What is it? Talking about the artificial process of layering. Now, in this type of plants, what would happen? In one such method, it is possible that this is a particular plant, majorly for shrubs, small shrubs. Now, this particular plant is giving rise to certain branches. This particular plant giving rise to certain branches. Now, as this plant is giving rise to certain branches, before the branches are absolutely mature and the outer layer become thick and firm, these branches are always bent towards the soil. They are always bent towards the soil. Now that they are bent towards the soil, after that what? They will always be covered, this particular region, they will always be covered with a small heap of soil here. And then a big stick or a bamboo should be attached. A big stick or a bamboo should be attached here. Did you follow what I said just now? As the branches start growing, the plant breeder or the farmer wants to practice layering. What is the objective of layering? Get a large number of plants in a short period of time. And maybe he wants to make identical varieties of this plant. Maybe it's a good variety of a plant. So this good variety of a plant, he wants to make large number of plants in a short period of time. So what he tries doing is that these plants, whenever, try understanding, this is a plant where we are trying understanding that this is a plant. The moment it starts giving rise to branches, the entire branch will not be allowed to grow, flourish and give rise to the fruit or the flower. But these branches, the moment they start growing, they are manually tried bending towards the soil. But now, is it possible that they remain this way? No, they will again revert back. No. So, in order to stop that, what is done? Some stick or a bamboo has to be tied here. And then with tissue tapes or ropes to be tied for firm support. And on top of that, some amount heap of soil here. Some heap of soil. Now, in this condition, they are kept for weeks, 3-4 weeks. Now that they're kept in this condition for 3-4 weeks and it is tested from time to time, the farmer would check. Slowly, slowly remove the bamboo there, and when it is removed, it is in that the stem is not reverting back, it is still firm there. That means roots have already developed here. And once the bamboo is removed and the tissue tapes and the ropes are all removed and still it is not reverting back, it is understood that these branches have already established, and in a period of time it is seen that yes, this starts again developing as a new plant. What is common between these two methods? Now that I talk about layering and cutting, what is common between these two methods? Something that is common between these two methods is the plants, large number of plants can be obtained in a short period of time. I talk about these cuttings. From one plant we can take almost about 3 to 5 centimeter stem cuttings and put them almost 20-25 stem cuttings from one plant easily you can get, or even more than that. I talk about a rose plant. From one big stem itself we can get almost about 3-4 cuttings, and then all over the plant, if we just take small portion of the stem, almost 25-30 stem cuttings and then put, what are we getting at the end? Identical plants. What is common between these two methods? The plants obtained are all identical, and the plants, large number of plants can be obtained at the same time. So these are the two advantages common for layering and cutting. Now, what is this particular method known as? Just now I mentioned, this is known as artificial layering because this is manually done. And this is natural layering because it naturally happens for the grape and the strawberry and variety of grasses and etc. It's happening on its own. What is the similarity between both these methods? Large number of plants, identical varieties. The points remain exactly the same. We talk about the leaf here. Is it possible that the leaves also give rise to new generation plants? Yes. Certain varieties. Now, for the leaves, there are exceptions, only few types. For the leaf one, I may talk about certain plants, and these plants, again, these are not tall big trees, these are also shrubs. Formation of new generation plants from the leaf, not possible for tall big trees. We are talking about shrubs. Now, these shrubs, they have got certain leaves. The leaves are quite broad. Now, what is happening to these leaves is a specialized type of an example that we talk about. A special example that we talk about is the bryophyllum. Now, these bryophyllum leaves, the leaves are a little bit broad. The leaves are broad. The plant is not that tall. It's a short plant. It's a shrub. But the leaves are broad. Now, these mature leaves, what do they develop? they will develop nodes like this or small, small bud-like structures like this. Where? At the margins of the leaf. So these leaves, which particular plant we are talking about? There are just few species. One such example that we talk about is the bryophyllum. What happens to the mature leaf? At the margins, they will develop small buds. And from these buds, what will happen? Some fine rootlets will develop. Some fine rootlets will develop. Hair-like structures will develop. Now these fine rootlets or the hair-like structures quite a number of times grow, because I mentioned repeatedly the plants are not tall. So quite a number of times these leaves which are still attached to the parent plant, fine rootlets develop which touch the soil. After a few weeks, what will happen? This leaf will dry out, the leaf will fall, and the process of growth will again continue. Sometimes it is the leaf which has already fallen on the ground. Sometimes it is the leaf which has already fallen on the ground, and now these buds which are there on the margins of the leaf, they start giving rise to fine rootlets, and the root hairs grow deep down into the soil. But after some time, what will happen to this leaf? The leaf will perish away. The leaf is no more there. The leaf will all get decomposed. But then these buds and the root hairs, they remain as it is, established. And from here, we come across new plants developing again. From here, we come across new plants developing again. If this is the method, this is what is known as bryophyllum, a concept known as budding. Which example did I speak about? Bryophyllum, a concept known as budding. Again, what are we getting? Large number of plants in a short period of time. In all the three methods that I speak, what is the advantage part? Large number of plants in a short period of time. What is the identical varieties? What is the disadvantage? The disadvantage is we cannot expect any new variety here in this method. We cannot expect to get any improved or developed variety from this method. It will always give rise to identical varieties. So that is common for all these three. Now, when we are talking about that,
what if a plant is defected and goes under budding if it has?
That is what I said, that if it is an identical variety, if it is not a good variety, then it is also giving rise to large number of plants. So that is the natural method. This is a natural method.
What if it's not genetically defected, like it has pests or bugs and it gets...
It will continue in the next, all the 15 plants will show the same feature. All the 50 plants, if it is growing, this is a natural process. This is a natural process. This is an artificial process. This is an artificial process. When I talk about layering, I already mentioned layering can be natural, artificial. This is an artificial process. When these diagrams are there in the question paper, check properly and then you write which one is artificial, which one is natural, and then certain questions you answer. Now, this is all about the three major methods. Now we talk about the stem part. The stem can be also used to give rise to plants, but new varieties now. Now we are not talking about the same identical varieties anymore. Now we are talking about methods where the stem can be used but to get improved varieties. How? Let us see. In certain cases, now this is generally for tall, big trees, guava, mango, etc. Tall, big, well-developed trees, where I understand that there are two plants related species. I talk about two species of mango, two species of guava. Now, every species will, or every variety will have some good characteristics and some undesirable characteristics. Maybe now I come here that for this particular species of mango, the fruit size that I understand, the fruit size is small, but then the fruits are extensively nutritive. The plants are very, very resistant. I just now talk about every particular species of the flower and the fruit and the crop have some desirable feature and some undesirable feature. So which is the undesirable feature that the farmer or the breeder would love to change? The fruit size may not be that commercially accepted. So now when we are talking about the other variety, now for this variety what is happening? The fruit size is comparatively bigger and the nutritive quality, the nutritive level is high here also, and they are also resistant, not a very sensitive uh, type of a fruit. So what is this particular breeder trying to do? Almost similar like hybridization, bring the tissues together, bring the tissues together so that this particular feature, if at all, corrected. So what he does, because this particular feature has to be corrected, so he will take this particular plant, cut out one particular portion of this plant, cut out one particular portion of this plant, and from here take a small portion of the stem, put it here, attach here. Now for this, the selection of the strains, selection of the types, quite a number of times the stem and the root, quite a number of times the stem and the bud, this type of tissues also can be merged. Something bit similar like hybridization that we understand. So now later what? Later this particular type of the stem, this stem has to be put here. Almost the girth and the width, everything is checked there, and then tie with tissue tapes. Add what here? Add adequate amount of disinfectants. Add adequate amount of disinfectants. Add adequate amount of hormones. Why hormones? To speed up the process of cell division. Did we finish control coordination here?
Yes.
So can you now tell me which type of a hormone generally should be applied here in large amounts so that the cell division is speeding up here?
Oxen.
Oxygen and cytokinin. Oxygen and cytokinin always helps in cell division. So it is majorly cytokinin which is applied here. An adequate amount of disinfectants. Why? Because two types of plant tissues coming together, there should not be any microbial infection. After a period of a month or two, what is noticed? These are all tissues. These are all rope or tissue tears, and they will all dry out. They will all fall off. They will dry out. They will all fall off. Now that they dry out and fall off, what are we observing after a particular period of time? A couple of months. After a couple of months, you will see certain new leaves coming up and the fruit and the plant is flourishing and the plant is flourishing. So now that this plant give rise to the fruit and the flower, expected that this feature is corrected. But this is an experiment, just at one go, always it is not happening. A number of times this process has to be done. It is just a trial and error method. A number of times they will do this and do this. If not accepted and still they get to see this feature, they will again try with another plant, another variety. What is the advantage part of it? What is the advantage part of this method? What is this method known as? This method is known as grafting. Which part of the plant is used here? The stem is always used in this part. In this method known as grafting, it is the stem which is used. But yes, along with stem, the bud also can be used. Young bud of the plant can also be used. Bud is a small growing tissue of a plant. Stem can be used, bud can be used for the process of growing a new variety. So what is the advantage of this method then? The advantage of this method is by the process of grafting we can bring 2, 3, 4 different type of tissues together in order to get a improved variety, in order to get a better variety. So now today whatever different type of crops and grains and cereals and pulses we eat, all are either hybridized or are grafted. None of these crops or the fruits or the grains that we eat are actually a single original variety, because every particular variety has got some of the other desirable and some of the other undesirable feature, characteristic. So the breeder always try to correct those undesirable, and that's the reason they are constantly into hybridization and grafting. Now that they are capable of making a good variety like this, now they will keep on breeding this, same type of a plant and obtain large number of the fruit, the commercial fruit or the flower, whatever. So what is the feature? What is the special feature? What is the advantage of grafting? What are you supposed to write? The advantage of grafting always is to obtain desirable varieties. But now when we are talking about the concept of grafting, but grafting again requires specific care, different type of tissues, which type of plants can be merged together, the season, etc., many things, many special features, many steps to take care when we are talking. This is a strenuous process, not like layering and budding, which is a very simple method. Yes.
Can I explain the process of grafting?
Grafting is just by the concept of grafting. Grafts means what? Putting one tissue with the other. Even in human body that is done. No, one tissue with the other. So here also a similar concept is done here. What is done? The tissue. Now I'm talking about two plants. I started this way. Very simple to understand. I talk about two plants. One plant is having this characteristic. The other plant is having this characteristic. So this plant is having better characteristics. So that plant will be now allowed to remain support, or that plant will be considered as a support. Now this plant which is considered as a support, this is known as the shorn, and this which is brought from the other plant, this is known as the stalk. So now when we are talking about that this particular plant which has more of good characteristic, this will always be allowed to act as a support. Over this, bring 2 or 3 or 4 tissues of different plants where you want to merge characteristics and make a hybrid or a better variety. Now why the breeder would do this type of hybrid graft? Because he wants to correct this feature. He doesn't want the next generation plants to show this. He wants the fruits to have a comparatively marketable size. So now what he does, he cuts this stem and puts it over, wraps it around, puts some hormones in, etc. Waits for a period of time to check, is it really the tissues, are they really getting blended? Are they really getting merged? So actually what is happening at this region? At this region what is happening? The cells come together, fusion is happening, and ultimately quite similar. I already mentioned this is quite similar like hybridization. The cells are ultimately getting fused together, a process quite similar like hybridization happening. And then slowly the tissue tapes and everything, and the two tissues almost start getting merged together. And now that this particular tissue will start, this particular stem will now start growing. In period generally 1 to 2 months, the growth is noticed. If it is successful, it will start growing. Now it gives rise to the fruit and the flower. And the fruit and the flower is expected to show this. If not, again repeat. So that is what the method of grafting is. So which type of tissues you'll have to remember? What are the advantages you'll have to remember? Disadvantage of this method is what? It is a lengthier process, only that. So for vegetative propagation, this you'll have to study. How many methods did we study for vegetative propagation? 4 methods. Cutting, layering, budding, grafting. You majorly get questions on grafting. So take that part of the volume also. In the volume also we have given there the concept of grafting. So check. I already discussed all the important points. You'll have to go through what are the advantages and the disadvantages. Now, after the concept of vegetative propagation in the plants, next what we try understanding would be a concept of sexual reproduction in the plants. First, sexual reproduction in angiospermic flowers. In angiosperms, when we are talking about angiosperms, what are angiosperms? These are the flowering plants. And what is the reproductive organ there? What is the reproductive part there? The reproductive part is the flower. How do you define the flower? It is a modified reproductive shoot. It is a modified shoot containing the reproductive organs. Where do you define this way? It is a modified shoot containing. It is a modified shoot containing the reproductive organs. It is a modified shoot containing the reproductive organs. So now that we are talking about the flower, what is the definition? How should you define the word? What is a flower? You get this for 1 mark. What is a flower? What is a flower? Children would write answer. Flower is an attractive part of a plant producing nectar and the. No, you are not supposed to write all these. What is a flower? With reference to reproduction, how should you define? A flower is a modified shoot containing the reproductive organs. Now, which are the parts of a flower and what are its significance? You'll have to remember this. So, when we are talking about the parts of the flower and its organs, try to understand the functions for each of these parts. The functions for each of these parts. So, we talk about a particular flower and the parts. We talk about a particular flower and its parts. So, to understand the basic structure of a flower has parts like this, the female part that we talk about. Then it will have the anthers. We are going to understand the functions of each of these parts and respectively the location, the position of each one of them. Let us try understanding. First of all, every particular part of a flower that we understand, every particular part of the flower, let me start with this. I would say exactly at the base of the flower there are some leaf-like structures, green in color, and they are generally 5 in number. And what are these known as? This is known as the calyx or the sepal. The first part of the flower that I talk about. This diagram is very important. You get in your paper for 2 marks as it is to draw the longitudinal section of a flower. You will be asked to draw this diagram, the longitudinal section of a bisexual flower. The longitudinal section of a bisexual flower. Very easy a diagram, but see that you don't unnecessarily draw it very clumsy, not to draw it very clumsy, half of the page. I always tell you whenever you are drawing a diagram, half of the page, only with pencil. Labeling at the most, artist woman. Huh? Put in little bit more effort and you can do much better. What I saw you in the month of May and what you are now, there's a lot of difference. Ab thoda sa aur chahiye. So now, when we are talking about this, let us talk about the parts. This particular diagram, all of you, as I explained, you should finish drawing. And at the same time, listen also. Understand, doubt hai pucho. I talk about the first part of the first part of the flower. What are the parts of the flower known as? Parts. When I talk about the parts of the flower, these are known as the holes of the flower. Parts of the flower are known as the holes of the flower. Which is the first hole I'm talking about? The first hole is the calyx, also known as sepal. What are some of the features of the calyx or the sepal? Generally 5 in number. What about their number? How many? Numerous? No, generally 5 or at the most multiples of 5. Mostly 5. But in some flowers we get to see multiples of 5 also. Draw the diagram. Next is what about the calyx? They are generally leaf-like structures. What else? What about their functions? Their functions, they carry out photosynthesis. What is the first function? The first function is carry out photosynthesis. What about the second function? Their second function is protect the bud of the flower. Protect the bud of the flower. Protect the bud of the flower. These are the 2 functions you are supposed to write. Mention 2 functions of sepal. What will you write? Protect the bud, the immature flower, and carry out the process of photosynthesis since it is green. So this calyx that we understand is always green in color, always green in color. Talk about the next hole here. The next hole. What is this next hole that we are talking about? Petals. Also known as the corolla. Petals, also known as the corolla. Now, what about the parts, functions, special characteristics, if at all? These petals that we understand, the petals are always brightly colored, except for some, of course. When we are talking about the petals, what are some of the features? Petals are brightly colored. What about their function? Function is majorly to attract agents for pollination. Attract agents for pollination. Huh? For an example, let us talk about a bisexual flower like hibiscus. That is the most common flower that is generally discussed because the structures are very simple there. So now, when we are talking about the parts of the flower, the first one that I talked about is the calyx or the sepal. Remember the functions. Petals of the corolla. What is one particular feature? They are generally bright colored and showy and big, except for certain flowers where the petals may be small. Then we talk about parts like the stigma, which is complete with the parts. I talk about parts like the stigma, then this is what is known as the style, and this part is known as the ovary. Inside the ovary, we come across certain chambers there, and these chambers are actually known as the ovule, but in this diagram, you may not show all these structures, but this much itself is enough. So this entire female part of the flower, just oh, I thought the next batch. Nahi hua na, abhi baki hai. Now, when we are talking about this particular structure, the stigma, the style and the ovary, the stigma, style and the ovary, together they form the carpel or the pistil. What is the carpel or the pistil? Not pistil, pistil, P-I-S-T-I-L. What is pistil? The female part of the flower. Just get acquainted with the name, the description we'll learn later. Next class, stigma, style, ovary. So this is about the female part. When I talk about the male part, this is known as the anther, which will be producing the pollen grain, and this is known as the filament. The anther and the filament together form the male part known as the stamen. So now, when I talk about the holes, which are the four holes that I had mentioned just now? One is the calyx, also known as the sepal. We discussed already the function. Then we talk about the corolla, also known as the petals. I talk about the stamen consisting of the anther and the filament. And I talk about the carpel or the pistil. Carpel or the pistil consisting of the stigma, the style and the ovary. Is this clear today? We are only talking about the parts. The next class will again have to understand the process of double fertilization, that how double fertilization gives rise to a fruit seed from a flower. Okay, complete the diagram as homework, all of you, and this side, most of you have not completed the previous 5 diagrams, so that also please complete and show me the next class. Basic India.
वही बोले जो टेस्ट है what इसको मूसा पता है मूसा कौन मूसा नहीं बोलूं कौन किसी को